Welcome. The purpose of this video is going to be to walk you through how to change part numbers using our part number conversion menu selection. Now, if you've gone through SBC, you'll find other menu paths in the system that are designed for part number changeover. However, you have to keep in mind that the system has been in development for over 30 years, and during different steps along the way, we've developed programs that will allow you to change part numbers. The benefit to using the one that I will show you here is that this will allow you to change the inventory record in every single file in SBC, as opposed to either simply changing it in the inventory or just changing it in a couple of random files as it was designed 15 years ago. Because we don't like to pull menu paths off of the screen from customers who have been with us for quite a while, that's why those menu selections still exist and they still function. But please use the part number conversion as I'm going to show it to you now. It will update the most number of files and keep your information more accurate. I'm going to start by going through the menu paths to get where I'm going. I'm going to go to letter Y, System Utilities, and then number 9, the Universal File Utilities. And finally, letter I, part number conversion. So what you see here at the top is giving us the information about the file, which I'll go through that in a second. And at the bottom, you're going to see information in yellow, and those are all of the files that you currently have open in SBC. So your screen might look slightly different than mine. This is giving you the opportunity to pick and choose where you want to change the information. If you simply want to change the part number or the manufacturer and the part number or simply the manufacturer in your inventory and moving forward, you can absolutely do that by placing an X in the appropriate files at the bottom in the yellow. If you want to change the manufacturer and or part number in every single file in your system, including your archive and your part tracking by account and your quantity on hand history reports and things like that, then you have the opportunity to put the X's in front of the appropriate files here as well. If you don't know the file names, or if you're unfamiliar with the file names that you're seeing here, please give us a call and we can go through what each of them represent and what they do for you. So from the top of the screen, you're going to start with your batch process. Do you want to run this in the background? Now, this is not something that you would do every Saturday night. It's not going to be something that you do on a regular basis. And because you're converting parts in your inventory, I strongly, strongly suggest that you do this when you're sitting at your desk watching this happen, because it can fail, and I will walk you through when it might fail, but then you see that information immediately after it happens and you can do things with it, or you can fix that before your employees arrive to use the system. So batch process, yes or no, it's up to you, but I would say no. Hard copy, do you want a paper copy of this? Now, if you're changing a large group of part numbers or a large group of account numbers, if you're using the account number conversion, and you're going from a number that is from one set of numbers to another set of numbers that's completely random and there's no continuity between what the old part number was and what the new part number was, you may want to create a hard copy just so you have on paper what your old number was and now what your new number is. I'm going to leave that as a no for these purposes. And then do I want to see my printed detail errors? Do you want to see if you have a problem? Absolutely. So I'm going to leave that as a yes. Next thing it's going to ask me is for my text file name, and I'm going to exit out of SBC, or I'm going to minimize SBC so that I can deal with my text file here first. Now let me say before I leave here that we have customers who are constantly calling us and saying, I want to make sure that I pull the history from the old part number to the new part number, or from the old account to the new account. We are not moving anything. We are simply doing a find replace. We're going into your AR, we're finding the account number, or we're going into the inventory and finding that manufacturer and part number, and we're replacing the information in that field with the new manufacturer and part number. We are not pulling any data off of an inventory record and moving it to a new inventory record. So you want to make sure that you get your mindset into the fact that we're simply going to find a value or a character string of information and we're replacing it with a new character string of information. You will not lose any information when you're doing this process. So I'm going to press my minimize key here and I'm going to pull up my file. I have my user data available on the right. And the file that I created, I used my ASCII create to create this file here, AMINV. It's a line of AM parts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this in Notepad and I'm going to open it with Excel. Okay, so I am going to do a text to columns to separate these. It's asking what I'm delimiting it with, and I'm delimiting it with a comma. You'll notice that when I click on that, it pulls the comma out, adds a new field. I'm going to hit the next button and I'm going to change both of these to text. That's so if I had any leading zeros, it's not going to blow away my leading zeros. I hit the finish button and it's now created 2 columns for me. Next, I am going to concatenate this information, putting my vendor code and my part number all in the same field. So I'm going to click on the concatenate button. And I'm using an older version of Microsoft Excel just because that happens to be the one that's on my computer, but you have access to all of these in Excel in any form or any version of Excel that you're using. So I'm going to grab my column A, I'm going to grab my column B, click the OK button, and I'm going to copy paste this all the way down my list. Actually, I'm going to copy and do it there too. Now, one of the important things in this particular file that I'm doing is that I have a 2-character manufacturer code. I want to make sure that I don't put my beginning of my part number in my 3rd character of my manufacturer code. That's why I did this way, just so that you could see this. And then I want to paste this. Values. Okay, so now instead of these being calculations, they're actual part numbers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am actually going to use this information to create new part numbers. You would never do this, or almost never do this. You're probably getting a list from your vendor and you're putting this in here. So I'm going to change the manufacturer and the part number just for this example. So I'm going to, let's do a copy and a paste, and I'm going to replace AM with AM5. I'm going to replace all. Okay, now notice it kept my space. I don't want my space. So I'm going to find a space and I'm going to replace it with nothing. Replace all. Last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change my part numbers and I'm going to add a field at the end of each of my part numbers. So I'm not going to do this for my bookend. That's unnecessary. And I'm not going to do it for my starting bookend either. So I'm going to use my concatenate, and I'm going to grab my part here, and I'm going to add an NEW at the end of it, and I'm going to click the OK button, and I'm going to copy and paste this all the way down my page. Copy this over, copy, paste special, values. Okay, now I have 2 columns of information. This is my old part number, and this is going to be my new part number. So I'm going to grab all the columns I don't need, whoops, and delete them. If you have any questions on anything that I just did, please call us and we can give you a quick Excel lesson. And so I'm going to file, and I'm going to save this as a CSV file. Now the reason that I'm saving it as a CSV file is because if you look at the original instructions, which we'll go back to, it's telling me to separate the 2 columns of information with a comma. So I'm going to save this as a CSV. I don't have to change the name if I don't want to. I'm going to click the save. Yes. Close it. No, I don't want to save it again. Okay. So here's my new file right here. I'm going to open it with Notepad so you can see what it looks like. So one thing that I want to make sure is that there isn't a bunch of junk at the bottom of my file that looks like this. That would mean that the way that I saved my Excel sheet, I had extra rows of Excel that don't have anything in them. I want to get rid of that. I also, if I needed to, want to get rid of any funky characters, including trademarks or registers or any of those weird characters. I can leave the space here. That's not going to hurt anything. And all I'm doing is looking to make sure that my file is in the right format. So here's my old manufacturer with the space and my old part number. Here's my new manufacturer, the AM5, and then my new part number. So there's nothing here that I would need to change. I'm going to hit the X key and I'm not going to save it. It's asking me if I wanted to save those changes that I made with the commas in the bottom of the page. Last thing I'm going to do is put this into my user data folder so that I can use it in the conversion. If you are using other user groups, which you would know the answer to that if you were, you can put it in one of your other user groups as well. I'm going to bring SBC back up. So if I were to type in the wrong file, amin.csv, and I hit my enter key, it's going to throw my cursor back to the beginning of the text file name. So that's a way that you either know that your file didn't get moved or you know that you typed in the name wrong. So aminv.csv is my file name. I'm going to press my enter key. And this is saying, are there any fields in your inventory that you want to change? Do I want to change these if they're found in the alternate part number field? Do I want to change them if they're found in the cross-reference fields? So you would want to know this information before you start this process, whether this information actually exists in other fields other than your manufacturer part number and whether you want to change those or not. If you have some questions about that, give us a call. One thing I didn't direct you to was over here on the right in the red, it says format. 18-byte old part number, comma, 18-byte new part number, comma, carriage return, and line feed. What this means is, to convert your data from an old part number to a new part number, I need an 18-byte or an 18-character old part number. Now, our part numbers are 15 characters, so this would lead me to believe that I have to include the manufacturer code in this, which in this case I do. If you're unsure, just call us. So I'm going to use my manufacturer and part number all in one field. I'm going to separate it with a comma, which is why I saved it as a CSV. And then I'm going to use my new 18-byte or up to 18-byte or 18-character part number, manufacturer and part number. And then carriage return line feed is simply pressing your enter key and moving your cursor over to the far left-hand side to start typing a new line of information. That's what a carriage return line feed is. So INV data fields. Do I need to change any fields or include any fields? I'm not going to do that. So I press my enter key, and then do I want to change the supplier number in the supplier number files? So if you have a record that the part number is duplicated in the supplier number field, do you want to replace that? I would say most of the time yes, because most of the time you're getting this information from your vendor. But perhaps you're not, so you make the decision appropriately on whether you want to do that. Enter store to convert. If you have a multi-store scenario and any of these files down here are multi-store, do you want to change all the stores or do you just want to change a single store? That's a decision that you'll need to make as well. And then is there a filter of either stores that you don't want to convert or files that you don't want to convert? That's when you use this area here. Once I've entered the information at the top, all I need to do is come down here and place an X in front of the fields that I want to convert. Now again, if you don't know what these field letters mean or if you don't know what these file letter names mean, call us, because we would much rather work with you on the front end of this than fix any problems on the back end. For my purposes, I'm going to change it everywhere. So INV is my inventory, POD is my purchase order detail, NSI is my non-stocked file. So I'm going to just press my enter key through all of these. Now I do have the ability, for example, TAFD, that's my archive. Maybe I want to be able to access the old part number in my archive, but use this for my new part numbers go moving forward, my inventory, any new hold tickets, any new purchase orders, any new sales. So you determine which one of these that you want to use, and we are happy to have a conversation with you about this before you change it if you want to have that conversation. So lower left corner, do I want to escape to get out? Do I want to return to start or press my enter key? Do I want to F10 to save the parameters? When you see that in a non-GUI screen, F10 to save parameters is going to save the screen just the way you see it. So we're not saving library jobs, we're literally saving this information on this screen. Now this is good if you have someone who isn't the owner making changes to part numbers maybe over a series of days, and you only want to adjust certain files. You can put the X's in front of the files you want, save the screen, and then they won't come in here and change it, or they can be told not to come in here and change it, and then you're only going to update those files that actually have an X in front of them. Up arrow to change, and Control X to change my printer. I'm not printing anything to paper, so I have no reason to change my printer number. I'm going to press my enter key to start this process. Let me get my cursor back on the screen. Press my enter key. Okay, now you may see at the bottom unable to convert. You see that over on the right hand side, but you may see like a message that tells you that the conversion failed. Notice how long it's taking for my inventory to even get to where the information is converted. I did this example in an AR video, and I had 12 accounts in my AR. It took 2 seconds to run this, and it went through every one of the files. My inventory on this system has something near 1.5 million parts. So this is going to take a minute for me to find this information, and this is why I want to watch this happening, simply because I want to make sure that I don't get a fail message that this is going to fail. So it's now searching for information, and I'm actually going to pretend that we got through the inventory, and I'm going to cancel this. So I pressed Control C to cancel this job. You would probably never want to cancel this. I just know that this is a demo system, so I can cancel it. I want to show you what the bottom of the screen looks like when you're converting data. So I'm going to press my enter key. It's going to kick me out, and I'm going to set the screen up real quick one more time. ARINV.CSV. That's not even what my file name is. What's my file name? AMINV. I don't have any inventory files to change. I don't have any stores I want to exclude. Whoops. I'm going to remove my INV flag. Press the home key. Now obviously if you're changing manufacturers and part numbers, there would be no reason that you would ever skip inventory. I'm skipping it simply for this video. So I'm going to press the enter key, and notice that all that stuff now just spit through it because I don't have a lot of information other than my huge inventory on this demo screen. So if you get a message that it says unable to convert, then there were parts that were somewhere in a file that were unable to be converted. This is the other reason you may want to have a hard copy of a yes. Your print detailed errors, if I had gotten an error, would show up on my screen here and would have actually stopped and allowed me to answer the question of whether I needed to stop this or what I needed to go and finish it. So the fact that I got program finished at 2200 hours means to me that it was successful in changing that everywhere. I can go out to my history now. I can search for parts. I can go into part tracking by account. I can search for parts and make sure that these conversions happen. So I should be able to immediately go out to files, obviously except for my inventory, and make sure that my new part number is now existing in these file areas. And you should have seen the same thing if we waited for inventory to finish. I was just concerned that it was going to take too long. If you have any questions on anything that you're doing, please call us and have a conversation with us before you do the conversion. If you get a message that says that you had a problem during the conversion, make sure you give us that information. One thing you may want to do is do this when there's no one on the system. Do it after hours, do it before business starts in the morning, because if you have one of these files open and somebody happens to be in there doing something, it can either hold up your conversion where you can just sit and stare at the screen while they are getting out of the screen, or it could actually fail on the conversion and we'd have to convert it again. So if you have the opportunity, do this before business hours or after business hours. If you have any questions on any of this, as I say, please call us beforehand. Or if you find any issues during the process, give us a call before you do it again. You can reach us at 800-829-4722. You can also reach us by sending us an email at sbctraining@autolog.com. Thank you so much for your time.